Well, howdy, y'all, and welcome to another high powered episode of the High Voltage Lab Show. I'm your co host, Willie Snyder from Nat King Code, coming to you live from Denver, Colorado, the Mile High City. And I am joined by my awesome partner, James Stallcup, over there at Volt Online Academy. And he is the best training program you'll ever see. And we have the death match is back. I'm so happy. I can't believe we're doing it. It was my idea, kind of. The way the idea originated was we back in the day we're thinking we could have this death match where a bunch of like top code people like went against each other, and then I thought, you know what, James, that would be cool if we could use your learning management program, your learning management system, and do a free test. And man, this time it's free and you can win some big cash out of it. So to me, that's awesome. I'm going for the prize this time. I mean, I was averaging in like around the 95 range, so like I think my last score was like a 95, and then we had a few questions that we had to kind of work on and stuff, so I was in like the 75, but then once we worked out all the kinks and stuff, then you got back to that 95 where I should have been at, the beginning. So it is what it is, I mean, it's just for fun.
Well,
What's
everything's
that?
ready to go. Everything is ready to go. I've got a practice test that you can go. It's just 10 questions, and I have it set for an hour. Everything will be an
Nice.
hour until we get to some harder questions and calculation problems. Then we'll kick it up to an hour and a half or two. But I've spent this whole last year, all the updates. The new website is up and running. All the new icons, the videos, the all the structure, design, everything was meant to be compatible with the learning management system. And last night I finished that about 2 o'clock in the morning, and then I started on the podcast. And 7 o'clock this morning I was done, and I hadn't slept,
Wow.
so I'm tired. After this is over, I'm going to bed. I'm getting too old to run that many hours again.
Yeah, and I was amazed because I was like thinking to myself, because a lot of people, we had a lot of questions the last time when we ran the death match, and everyone's like, I don't even know how to do it. And like a lot of people, there was some kinks we had with like the way your learning management system was set up. So then we decided, we're gonna have all the kinks worked out by the time we started again. And David Englehart was always out there telling us like, hey man, I'm ready to go, I'm ready to win this thing. So if you're out there and you want to win the $1,000, you got to tangle with David Englehart, because he was smashing that thing last time. He was getting hundreds every week. So um hats off to you, David. You were actually the official winner of the last death match. And so it was just our practice session that we were doing, and then now it's for the big time. This is for $1,000, 9 months, and the winner takes all. So I
Right.
doubt we're gonna have a tie. Just the way it went last time, I don't think it's gonna be able. Once it starts getting harder, I mean, there you see a lot of these guys start dropping off, because a lot of people are used to these easier questions, and then some of James's calculations are tough. So you're gonna have to know your calculations when you start getting in there, because there's every test gonna have four calculations
Uh, four
or three?
calculations. It'll be four calculations, 20
Okay.
questions. And when we start getting to the end, we'll start getting into some really hard calculations. I'm even going to have one for calculating X-ray equipment. So
Okay.
y'all gonna learn. It's going to get tough near the end, and I don't expect anybody to get 100 on everything, because I'm going to put some pretty tough ones. I'm even going to do one that I'm going to set up for like calculating a transformer when you're in elevation. And you're going to
Oh,
have to know some other standards to apply some of these calculation methods or manufacturer recommendations. So that's when it gets really hard. And but those type of things that I'm gonna put in there, you can see all that stuff in our publications. We actually show you how to do it. So it's, I mean,
Nice.
if you want to cheat a little bit, get a publication. It'll help you.
There you go. So one of my questions that I was going to ask you too. So it is time. So you're going to be limited to an hour. And is that going to get longer as that gets harder, or is that
Yes.
going to just
Oh yeah.
basically stay?
It'll get longer. That's the great thing. The system I had before. That's why it's taken me so long to do everything, because I had to find a learning management system that allowed me to do all the things that I was doing, and that would allow me to write certain JavaScript in order to get it to do certain things. And that's why I went with this new learning management system. And we spent the last year and a half with the learning management system and the website, fixing everything to be compatible with each other to where it all links up real good and everything. And now that I've got everything done, starting here first year, I've already sent in a bunch of applications and we're getting ready for state license update. Hopefully come February, I will have a big announcement. And
Nice.
it's going to be awesome. It's going to freak some people out, but I'll just say this: the people that we're looking at working with, they don't work with anybody. So that tells you your stuff is really, really good when they're going to work with
Nice.
you.
Yeah,
And I will
awesome.
say for that
And that is good news.
and I will say also the NEC death match will be 9 months. There will be one test every month. It will be $1,000 to the winner. Then I'll give some courses and stuff for second and third. One of the things I'm going to do, I had an example. You can actually go over to the Facebook page, Vote Online Academy, and you can see an example. Once the first of the month starts, I'm going to do the 10-month practice test, and I'm going to take them questions. I'm going to do one a day, show them what the answer was. Or people can even answer if they want, then I'll give the answer at the end of the day, but I will have it there. So, hey,
Welcome,
John.
John. Awesome, man. Yeah, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to bring it in. So what we might do,
This
and I have
2023 is going to be awesome. Go ahead.
what we might do for like second and third place. I might have some tools, some second and third place tool stuff. I'm in talks with some tool people that are gonna probably sponsor and try to throw me some tools. So um, that was something
Oh,
I
cool.
had in the works. I didn't talk to you about, but and we'll might even have like top five place, like the top five will get something. You know what I mean? We might
Oh,
have
cool.
something like that. So we're gonna try to get it to where it's a lot of fun. And we had a program at my company where we would do a code question and we would give it to the apprentices, and then whichever apprentice got the code question right, we'd give them a tool. And we used to do that every month and stuff. So I want to try to get back to stuff like that because I really enjoy it with the apprentices. I think they enjoy learning code, and when you make it fun for them and they get something cool tool, a tool or something out of it, then it makes it fun for them. So
Yeah, I'll tell
i'm
you,
i'm pretty excited.
I've already had, I think, 4 or 5 new people subscribe to the LMS that have already taken the practice test. They're already gearing
uh,
up. I mean, they're like, "Oh, this is gonna be
Nice.
awesome," and you're getting something out of it, and it takes me a little time, and that was one of my big hurdles because I had to fix all of that for the website and the learning management system, and we went in and we changed all the new icons, everything to match through the systems and all that. I mean, there was a lot of people don't realize there was a I couldn't even begin to tell you how many hours went into getting all this done and completed, and it I'm very extremely happy with all the work that's done, and
Yeah,
it's
and
going
and
to be awesome.
I really appreciate like all the people that participated in my myth of the week. We had a great week this week. I think I hit like 75,000, which I was just amazed. And then the other thing is too that we also have a Facebook page, the NEC Deathmatch page,
Yep.
and or it's actually an NEC Deathmatch group. I always say the wrong thing on that. My
Yep.
Nat King Code is a page. The Deathmatch is a group. So the NEC for Dummies is a group, and so we link our pages to the groups. But we do have NEC Deathmatch group, and even if you don't even want to compete, you'll be able to jump in there, and we'll be posting like leaderboards. Not really so much leaderboards, but just so much like who's competing. And we could post your score if you want. Like we did it last time. People were getting like 100%, and they're like, "Yeah, we got 100%. We want you to post it." So then we would post it on there and stuff. And so then it would put pressure on people to do better the next week and stuff. So it was a lot of fun, and I'm just really looking forward to it. Real excited, and I'm gonna try to compete, but who knows? You know what I mean? It might just be out of my league, like right after like week 3. I don't know, but the thing is, with the last test, I thought, you know what? I'm gonna jump in there. These are easy questions. I'm gonna get 100%, and then I went in there and I got a 95, and one of the ones that I missed, I was like frustrated because it was like support on EMT, and the answers were 3 foot and 10 foot, and so I put 3 foot, and the answer was 10 foot. You know what I mean? But it was that whole thing that I just didn't read. I was trying to go fast, and I didn't read it. And I was kicking myself when I went back, and I was like, dude, if I would have just taken my time, doing a little bit slower, I would have got 100% that first time. And so then I kind of drove myself. I'm like, all right, so I got that 95%. Now, once it starts getting harder, I got to maintain that 95%, And so I did, through the next ones. I was just like, okay, I'll have that one that I'm not going to get, whatever, for whatever reason. And there was some that didn't even have a right answer at all. And then I'm like, dude, this doesn't even have a right answer. And then you're like, oh, I forgot to put the voltage. You know what I mean? So that's what we were trying to do. Like, I know you were trying to put them together like so fast too, just like all this stuff. You're trying to put it together so fast, and you know what I mean? It was just, there's some things that get missed. There's some spelling things that happen or whatever. So if there's something that you see wrong in the death match, just let us know. We'll get it edited and corrected, and you know what I mean? Like, and we'll figure it out as we go rather than figure it out at the end. So that'll kind of be
Well, the
something we
good
can
thing
work
is
on.
I have plenty of time now. I've gotten everything together, and it's not as demanding on me. The only demands I have coming forward now is just updating the publications and the courses and stuff, and that is like smooth selling for me, because all this new updates we did to the website, the learning management system, plus I was doing the podcasts and stuff. I had courses I was going out teaching. I was being pulled 10 different directions trying to keep up with everything. Now I only got about 3 or 4 things I have to keep my mind on.
Well, dude, I can't imagine with you and Pops both being NFPA teachers. That's got to be hard. Got to be a lot of scheduling stuff you got to deal with.
They hadn't been doing much at all this last year, and there for a while it was nothing for me to be gone, maybe 5, 6, 7 times during the year. At one time, I remember I was doing a lot, and I'd be gone probably 20 times in a year. But I also went out and did specialty courses for them too. If somebody called and wanted something for hazardous, matter of fact, there were times that they had us come in and we actually used our own material because we were the only ones that had it.
Right.
It's like they want us to do a 70B. We went out and did the 70B because we're the only ones that have a publication on it.
Yep.
And that was, I wish they go back to the teaching. But when COVID happened and all of that, it sort of killed their training department, and they're just not doing it anymore that I can see. I mean, um, but maybe they will come back and start doing it again. We'll see. But
Well, I will keep my hat off for your Dallas Stars are still doing good, and it looks like the Cowboys are in like one of the probably funniest playoff games I could ever imagine as far as records go. Like when I saw that, I was like, how are they in there? Like it could have been like the Broncos versus Raiders if our division was that bad.
yeah, the East is tough, man. I'll tell you, you get Philadelphia, Dallas, New York, Washington. I think New York and Washington are still in the running for wild card spots, and the worst division is the one over there, Tampa Bay. Hell, the one that I think Tampa Bay's leading the division with a losing record. I
Oh
mean, and
yeah,
they're going to get in the
yeah,
playoffs. I mean,
yeah.
that's just unbelievable.
It
But
is absolutely. Hey, I never did get a chance to ask you. What did you think of the meme of the week? Like that's one of my ones I always talk about on the job sites because you always get those hotheads that come in and
mhm,
act like they've been just doing it forever and then they don't know certain things. So I
sure.
thought it was a pretty good one. You want to roll it?
You want meme of the week?
Yep.
Here we go.
Yeah, that one's one of my favorites. Justin Gibbs, big shout out to Justin Gibbs. He's like, "Oh, I'm saving that one." And when I seen Justin liked it, I was like, "All right, we're gonna roll." So that one was pretty funny.
That's cool. All right, you ready to jump into the
Yeah,
myth?
let's do
Let's.
it.
All right.
It's time for Myth of the Week.
All right, so I appreciate everyone that participated in the Nat King Code Myth of the Week this week. We had a really good time doing it. This is kind of one of those ones that a lot of people don't really understand, and I kind of found a bunch of things that I didn't even really know as I was digging through some of these references. So this install, this is from one of my buddies on Facebook. This is one of our guys in our chat group, Milo. Not trying to blast on you, brother, but this one was a good one. So what we try to do is we try to put together some installs that are perfectly code compliant, and we'll just like give people that Forrest Whitaker eye where they just twitch and they just like for right away for me it was when he put the pigtail in there with the wire nut, because it's like you don't even need that, you just need the ground screw, and just stuff like that. And then this is actually one of the grounding and bonding ones that we do a lot, where the cover um, is actually a compliant ground because you have the 832 screws that fasten it to the box, and that's actually compliant. But the biggest thing is where the raceway, where basically it looks like Milo is just protecting the Romex from damage. So he used a piece of PVC in like that area where it could be subject to damage. And nothing in the code says this is illegal, as long as you would have to use a bushing like where it enters the PVC. If it's just a stub of PVC like conduit, has to be some kind of a terminal. But there's nothing that says that this has to have a bushing. So this myth is busted, that regardless what your cable is stubbing in, you don't need to have like an insulated bushing on there, even at number 4 larger. We run into this with SER cable. A lot of the guys, we go in, they'll run the SER cable in. Let's just say it's a 3 SER cable. Well, they have like an SER connector that goes in there, or what you would call like a non-metallic sheath cable connector. And as long as you have that insulated jacket, just I think it's 1/4 inch is the code. As long as you have that in there, you don't need an insulated bushing. The cable is considered protected from damage.
Sure. One of the things I put in here to start this off is section 300.4, and it deals with protection against physical damage, and it references here conductors, raceways, and cables shall be protected. Right. So some will say, well, it doesn't say that in that section. Well, 300.4 covers the conductors, raceways, and cables. Okay, so I just wanted to point that out so there's no misunderstanding on that. So when you get over here and you start looking at the fittings, in G, it talks about where the raceways contain number 4 or larger insulated type circuit conductors. Okay, so when they tell you anytime that you have these type of conductors, enter a cabinet, a box, an enclosure, raceway, they're going to tell you have to use one of the following methods to provide that protection. And it says you can have an identified fitting providing a smoothly rounded insulating surface, a listed metal fitting that has smoothly rounded edges. You can have separation from the fitting or raceway using identified insulating material. Of course, that has to be securely fastened in place. Or you can have threaded hubs or bosses that are an integral part of the cabinet, box, enclosure, raceway, providing, of course, once again, a smoothly rounded or flared entry for the conductors. Okay,
so and I ran into 760 24 that is mechanical execution of use, or mechanical execution of installation for fire alarm, and it references this section. So
sure it does.
That would align with cables as well, because typically in fire alarm, we're not really installing too many conductors. We're almost always installing cables in conduit and in different kinds of raceways. So that's interesting. That references that.
And then another thing back here, because I remember I was looking at comments on there, and people, excuse me, didn't mean that to go forward. Showing here saying that receptacle had to have a ground. Well, since I read that in the comments, I wanted to come over and look at 250.146A, and you're going to see that they've added the new 1 and 2 that are yellow there. And what it says here, a listed exposed work cover shall be permitted. And this, of course, this is for surface mounted box. Shall be permitted via the grounding and bond, to be the grounding and bonding means, and it talks about under 2 conditions. And what it says here is the device is attached to the cover with at least 2 fasteners that are permitted, such as the rivet or having a thread locking or screw or nut locking means. And then number 2 says the cover mounting holes are located on a flat, non-raised portion of the cover. Now, if you go back and you look at this illustration here, you'll see here that this is flat right here, that screw. Therefore, that provides the bonding means here and grounding for that receptacle. Now, if that hole right there that you're looking at where that screw is, if it wasn't flat there and it was raised off of there, then what ends up happening, you have to have a ground here and to the receptacle bonding it in.
Well, and the other thing that you might have noticed in the comments too was the backstab. Like, a lot of people hate the backstab receptacles.
Mm-hmm.
They were a listing problem initially when those devices were first entered with those quick stabs, and they were listed for like a number 12 and a number 14. They actually lost their listing for number 14 or for number 12. So you could only backstab with number 14, and they actually tested these, and they're not having the same problems they were initially. So that a lot of those devices you see having problems with those backstabs are actually the original ones that had problems with the listing. So it was kind of cool. We got some extra myths to cover in our next weeks with this one, but we've already covered I think the raised cover one, possibly. I'm not sure if we have or not, but
we had. I don't remember that one.
Okay. But yeah, we have the raised cover one, and then we have the backstab receptacle one. And the backstab receptacle one kind of goes hand in hand with the Wagos, because everyone says those Wagos are horrible. But, in Europe, that's all they use is Wagos.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's like
it is what it is. But
like when they came out with GFCI, they were having all kinds of problems with them and everything. And over time, they get better with their technology and stuff. And then they'll get their listing, back on that number 12. So it's more of a, they get better with their products, and naturally, they're going to try to keep that listing for that. So
the myth is busted. You don't have to have insulated bushing on anything. Like we even saw some in the comments where people say you have to have insulated bushing 1 inch or larger. I don't know if that was something that might have been in the code a long time ago or something, but that's not true either.
That's not.
So,
all right. Well, let's kick it in gear and get to topic of the week.
Awesome.
All right, the topic of the week, this is going to be part 2 of 2023 NEC sections. I felt like we need to discuss to make sure there's no misinterpretation. Everybody knows what's going on. Now, we're going to focus a lot this week on Article 220 because there were a lot of changes that were made in Article 220 to make sure there's clarification on what the intent is. Now, I will tell you, in our publications, we've always applied this. But what they did is in 220.50, you used to just say motors, and now they've added and air conditioning equipment. Okay. And when you look at that, basically, we used to take and we would look at applying this when we're going to look at the largest motor. Okay. We'd always reference back to this and tie this in with 220.14C. And all they talk about here is the conductor sizing requirements. And they're just going to tell you that you're going to be looking in 430.24 and 25. And when you look at 430.24, that's where you have 2 or more motors. You're going to have several motors. If it was just a single motor, you would be looking at 430.22. Okay. But here, now they're also going to tell you to go over and look at the conductor sizing requirements that are specified in Part 4 of Article 430 for determining for the air conditioning load for your hermetic refrigerant motor compressors. So they're just telling you, you got to take and consider both of these when you're looking at your, when you're applying your ampacity calculation. Okay. So with this being updated here, this makes it more clear to perform the calculation the proper way. And this we've always done this, but now with them putting this in here, that this happens. And I'll tell you why this was confusing is because when you used to go look and you look at 220.61, okay, what did that deal with? That dealt with non-coincident loads. And a lot of people used to think if I took and selected the heating load as the largest load and dropped the air conditioning load, that motor was no longer part of the calculation. You see what I'm saying? And that's where it got confusing for some people. So now with this being in here, that 220.61 doesn't matter. You're still going to have the largest between those two, but the air conditioning motor could be larger than the other motors.
Right.
Okay. And
And that's why they added the clarity there.
That's right. So there's a reason I brought this up is because of 220.61 and there being a confusion in why they did what they did here. And this goes back to somebody really knowing the code and calculations and understanding intent and what they're trying to get across here. Okay.
I got you. Okay, cool.
So that, to me, I feel like that's a pretty important misunderstanding that had been out there before. And whenever I've been teaching courses and stuff, I'll always bring this up. But there was nothing really in the code that would specify. But now 220.50 talks about the conductor sizing requirements between the two here. You have to use those to determine the loads.
Yeah, and some people could be still teaching out. So some people could be still teaching out of the 2017, and then they could kind of see like, oh, hey, you know, if you use the 2023 language, then it can kind of make things easier.
Was the same. Yeah, they meant for you to do it in all the other ones too, but this just clarifies it. Now,
gotcha.
One of the other things that's going to happen here, and there's going to be another slide, I think it's right after this, and to help clarify this, but what we used to do, and you'll remember I was asked this question before the 2023 come out, and they said, well, if I have electrical vehicle service equipment, where do I put that load? And I said, well, the way the code reads right now, I said, you would have to go to 220.53, and that's what we would consider our fixed appliance load when we were doing residential. And if you get in and you start looking at commercial, then you're going to be looking at 230.42 A1 and A2, and that gets into your continuous and non-continuous, and you would just take the load of whatever that electrical vehicle service equipment was. But here I'm dealing with dwelling units. You'll remember when I did this, I actually did two different ones, but somebody was asking me to go through and just lay out how to do a residential calculation. And I said, the first thing you want to do is do your general lighting and receptacle load. And I said, then you want to do your cooking equipment loads, your dryer loads, your heating and AC. You get all of those out of there, then everything else was the fixed appliance. Well, now they have the new number 5, which is electrical vehicle service equipment, and there will be a separate calculation for that one. So that's going to add another step. All right. Now, you go to add this step, you're going to notice right here in 220.57 that load has to be calculated at either 7,200 VA or the nameplate rating of the equipment, whichever is larger. So it's just sort of like looking at a signed load in 220.14C and then going over and looking at 600.5A. The very minimum that if I was doing electric sign would be 1,200 VA. Well, here they're telling you the very minimum when I'm calculating electrical vehicle service equipment has to be 7,200 VA. That's the minimum.
Right.
If you go over as another example, if I look at a dryer, for instance, a dryer has to be rated at what? At a minimum, 5,000 VA. Same principle applies here. So when you're dealing with a dwelling unit, we're going to add this in, and we're going to do a calculation when we're doing the full calculation and show electrical vehicle service equipment. We're going to add another step into our calculations, and it'll show it at 7,200 watts. Or we may do the name, but at the very minimum, it'll have to be 7,200. So 220.53 is going to work in conjunction with 220.57. And what I tell people, when you're doing these calculations, you really need to make sure you get a publication that shows you step by step the sections and everything, because you're going to have to look at 2 sections here in order to apply this. Okay.
Right.
So that's one of the things that is new. Everybody needs to pay attention to, and you can see at this point where some people might get confused because they used to apply it to doing it with the fixed appliance load. So this is,
Right.
to me, it's not confusing, but it could get confusing for somebody if they hadn't looked at the 2023. But if you're in the
Right.
2020 cycle, you want to put it in the fixed appliance load. Okay.
Yeah, and I thought it was really cool when we did our episode on EBSE, and like we did kind of like a myth a little bit as far as like wet locations and stuff like that, and GFCI protection. Like I really learned a lot because I didn't know that they came with integral personnel protection, and that they're basically like plug and play.
That's
And
right.
so the only time when you got a GFCI protect those is when they're connected, cord and plug connected to a receptacle. So
That's
I
right.
thought that
Not
was pretty
hardwired.
awesome.
And when we
Yep.
did that episode, you remember I put all them sections in there because I wanted everybody to understand, because there had been an argument like we did last week. We were talking about the AC unit, and I've maintained over and over there's no outlet there. Well, the electrical vehicle service equipment is another good example that has been brought up, and they specifically tell you if it's hardwired, it'll be on the load side of that. You don't put it on the line side of that equipment. And
Right.
that was wording there. So now that brings up a dilemma for 210.8F.
Big time. And
So
the whole thing is that you get to the point where it's like, okay, so code making panel 12 is responsible for EBSE. And there was a gentleman, not going to name his name, who's on the code making panel 2, that said that, oh, well, that's governed by a different code making panel. Okay,
no, it didn't.
well, so that's saying that EBSE GFCI protection, if it's either governed by code making panel 2 or it's governed by code making panel 12. You have to pick which one. It can't be, you can't just say that code making panel 12 could say it's not connected to an outlet, then code making panel 2 says it is connected to an outlet, because it's not going to work, because basically one's going to cancel out the other.
Yeah, it's
So
like you and I talked about it, and I said, I don't agree with that statement when you told me about it. And I said, I'll tell you why. So basically, what you're going to tell me, that if I go over and I look in Article 440 and I'm dealing with HVAC, 210.8F applies. But if I go over here and I'm dealing with electrical vehicle service equipment, that they govern that.
yeah,
That's picking and choosing. You can't pick and choose. Either 210 or it doesn't. And that's like I've been saying for the longest time. There's no outlet there. It's utilization equipment. And that's where the dilemma
right.
comes in from this picking and choosing. And that's why I never agreed with it in the first place.
Well,
So,
and then we ran into it again with code making panel 17 with the water cooler episode. And there was a lot of them jumping out there saying, oh, well, those things don't require GFCI if they have integral GFCI inside of them. Well, I guess you would say they do because they're connected to an outlet, so that's the whole thing that's frustrating, is like now you're going to have to say equipment has to have 2 GFCIs just to make their one argument correct.
That's right. Can't do that.
That's where I get frustrated.
And all these points are being brought up, and I think it's getting to the point now where it's being shown that we were right in everything we said. So,
Yep,
I
agree.
And I think I'm waiting on the Standards Council report. I can't wait to see it, because now I heard somebody was already complaining about the balance of power now that's going to be in co-making panel 2 and running that balance. No, they're fixing the balance is what they're doing. That's
I
what's
agree.
happening.
Yeah.
All right. Now, another one that took place here. Now, let me sort of explain this section a little bit, because a lot of people get confused when you look at 240.4B, and this is where you're dealing with overcurrent protection devices that are rated 800 amps. Now, I'm gonna make you a little problem up here just as an example. Let's say that I calculate a load and it's continuous. Say I come up with a total of 58 amps. Okay. Now, you're going to see in the yellow down there, they're going to tell you table 240.6a. That's where you go pick up your standard overcurrent device ratings. But I'm still in 240.4b. I'm not down there yet, but I just want to point that out. And it says the next higher standard overcurrent device rating shall be permitted to be used. Okay. Now, if I calculate 58 amps, the next standard size above that 60 amps, right? Okay.
Yep.
Now, right in between there, there's in parentheses it says above the ampacity of the conductors being protected. Now, let me explain what that means. If I go over and I look at table 310.16 and I come down in the 75° C column, the next size above that 58 amps is going to be 65 amps, which is a number 6 conductor. Now, what they're doing here, they're giving me an option here. I can protect the load or I can protect what? The conductor. So I could have 60 amp or the next size above the ampacity of the conductor being protected is what? A 70 amp. Okay.
Right.
So you got options there. Now, if I go down and I look at what's in yellow there, what they're going to get in here, they're going to talk about an adjustable trip device. Okay.
Right.
And they're going to tell you, of course, you'll install it in accordance with B1 through B3 above it. And it says it shall be permitted to be set at a value. Now listen to this, that does not exceed the next higher standard value above the ampacity of the conductors being protected. Okay.
Right.
Now let's explain. And what they're telling you here is, if it can exceed, that means I have to do what? Drop down, right?
Yep.
Okay.
The next one down.
And then it says where restricted access is in accordance with 240.6c is provided. Okay. So basically, in a way, this is almost an exception to the general rule, but they're just telling you you cannot exceed the next higher standard value that calculated. Now, let's talk about that for a second, because what you've got an adjustable trip device that is allowing you to do this, and you get the same type of language when you get over and you start looking at motors and HVAC equipment and stuff, and it tells you when you do the calculation, you cannot exceed what? The value calculated. Well, all they're doing here is just telling you that it can't be above the ampacity of the conductors being protected if I'm doing an adjustable trip device. So what does that sound like right there? It sounds like 240.4C when you're talking about devices rated over 800 amps. You see what I'm saying? So when you get over and you look at devices over 800 amps, they tell you you can't exceed the ampacity of the conductors. Well, the same thing's applying here, but it's only for what? An adjustable trip device if it's 800 amps or less. So a lot of people have to pay attention to the two different sections and then looking at other sections where they're telling you the same thing. And that's what I'm trying to say here. You know, somebody made a comment on one of the posts I did and was talking about the motor, and you go over and look, which is now going to be in the 2023 will be 430.52 C1 instead of C. It'll be C1. And the heading's going to say in accordance with table 430.52, and it says in there you cannot exceed the calculated load based on the percentages in table 430.52. So once you calculate, that means once you've done the calculation, I've stated this for a long time, that is your minimum size, even though it says maximum in the table, but it's same thing here. You can't exceed what that calculation is, so you have to drop down. This is the same type of principle here. So even in our courses that we teach and everything, we tell everybody to pay attention to the wording that's there. And this is very specific. So we're going to do a calculation that we're going to show an adjustable trip device, and we're going to show you doing the calculation and not exceeding the ampacity of those conductors when you're doing this. So people have an understanding step by step how that calculation applies.
Well, yeah, and I like just to kind of put this in layman's terms for some of the people that don't realize, sometimes what you have is you'll have like a higher available fault current, so you might have to adjust the overcurrent device to like a larger device,
Mm-hmm.
and when you do that, you have to increase the size of conductors as well. So, you might have to go up to like, let's just say you're on an 800 amp service, you might have to go up to 1,000 and then dial it down to like 900.
That's
And
right.
then at that point in time, you have to actually make sure your conductors are rated for 900, not 800.
That's right.
So even though the engineering standard only required an 800, your available fault current in order to bring it into like more of a wheelhouse of where we can deal with it on our utilization side, then we have to increase that to adjustable trip or adjustable overcurrent and go to like 1,000, and then just make sure our conductors are rated for the 900, and then has to be like locked and all that. And that's kind of that's a tricky one. I ran into that before, and it's rough. Like when an inspector says, hey, how can you make sure that nobody's gonna change that adjustment? And it's like, a locked room that says qualified persons only. I mean, there's really very little ways that you can actually stop somebody from changing that adjustment on that, especially the time current characteristics. I hate that, getting them all dialed in perfect, and then you come back next day and they're messed up because the maintenance guy's like, oh dude, I know how to
Yeah.
all these should go to 11. you know
Yeah, and that's
so
that's a good point, because that ties in exactly what I was saying up there, giving an example of a 58 amp load and everything. You could have a load and then you dial it back, but you can't exceed that conductor ampacity with an adjustable trip device. But another device you could, up to 800
right,
amps.
right,
So, and
absolutely.
that's why I wanted to break it down so everybody had an understanding of exactly what they were doing, and that's why I gave that example of a load where you were actually over the conductors, but in this case you wouldn't. You'd dial it back down.
10-4, I agree.
All right.
No, good
So
one. All right.
hopefully, yeah, that's important to know. Now,
Yeah.
let me explain this one. All right. Now, what happened here is this was eventually this when this first come out, this was 250.32 B1 and B2. And then they come in, they put in an exception in here. And what they did is to clarify uh, uh, the grounded conductor. Of course, this will be um, for installations that were made in compliance with previous editions of the NEC for the grounded conductor. And it's where the grounded conductor was used also for grounding based on this exception. And then they tell you that if you're going to do that, the size of the grounded conductor shall not be smaller than the larger of either of the following. So what you would do is you look at 220.61 and you would calculate the neutral load and get your size conductor, and then you would do the size equipment grounding conductor based on 251.22, and whichever one was the largest between the two, that conductor had to be that size going over there. And what they did, they clarified these methods for determining what the size of that grounded conductor, or it could be the equipment grounding conductor, that were made for this type of installation that was in previous editions of the National Electrical Code. Okay.
Okay.
So there's a clarification just to make sure you're looking at these sections and they're being very specific. One is the calculated neutral load, and the other is the minimum equipment grounding conductor size. Okay.
Right. Is there any way that you would have to upsize that minimum equipment grounding conductor size, like to go to make a 250 122B apply to that?
Yes. And I'll give everybody an example of that. Let's say that I'm going over, you got another panel board over, and let's say that I calculated, and let's just say it was 175 amps, for instance. Now,
Mhm.
if I go over there, uh, and I'm going to size my equipment grounding conductor going over there. If I look at that, that's going to be for 175 amp overcurrent device. I think it's the number 6, if I'm not mistaken. So you go over there with a number 6 per table 25122. Now, the size conductors that are going over are DeWalt for the phases, and that's based on table 310.16. Now, as you're doing this type of calculation, what it's going to tell you is you need to do this based on the circular mill. Now, let's say that I was going over there, you got a feeder, and you're looking over at a 215.2A fine print note number 2, I think it is, where you get into voltage, or A3 fine print note number 2, you're looking at your voltage drop. We do our calculation 2 times R times L times I divided by 1,000. And you determine you've got 162 foot length over there, and you had to increase it up to a 3-aught, which is good for 200 amps. Now, what's going to happen is you need to go over and look at Chapter 9, Table 8, and you're going to go over there and you're going to get the circular mill for number 4, and that'll be the next size above a number 6. And then you're going to get the number 6 circular mill, and you're going to divide the number 6 into the number 4, and that's going to give you a multiplier. Then you're going to take that number 6 circular mill, and you're going to add that to that multiplier. Once you get that multiplier, whatever that circular mill comes out to, that'll tell you the size equipment grounding conductor that would need to be sized up, and therefore it could be larger than the calculated neutral load also.
Right, Tempor. Gotcha. All right. Yeah, no, great explanation.
That's
yeah.
just off the top of my head. I'm doing this. So.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's some guys that say you'd have a 350 MCM with a 500 ground, and I'm like, what? I was like, I don't see that ever happening, but yeah, you never know.
I don't see that.
Never know where these guys get some of their ideas, like they.
Oh yeah.
Do these, like, I never heard of anybody adding up the circular mills on paralleled runs. Like, to me, it's the largest size of the ungrounded conductor. That's it. You don't have to add them all up.
No, you don't add that up. You add the amperage up. The amperage is what makes the determination if you're protecting the load or not. The circular, the only time you're worrying about the circular mill is when you're applying for voltage drop or something like that. That's what it's going to apply to. And if you look at 25122B, it says based on circular mill. So,
well, yeah, and it's based on circular mill of the largest ungrounded conductor, not all the ungrounded conductors added up together. Like when you start getting to millions of circular mills, you get it wrong.
The only other time you're going to worry about the circular mill is when you're sizing and you're taking it at 12.5%, and and that's over in 25102. So that's where you're going to look at that. But a lot of people get confused on how to do that, and that's why I always tell them, get a stock up publication, because we show you all those calculations and we put little notes on the side what the intent is and what it applies to. So
yeah, I agree.
All right, you ready for the 5 changes, brother?
Let's do it, bro.
Let's see what we got this week. All right, awesome. Okay, now
I know we're in 440 now, or we're out of 440, are we? Or
no, we're still in 440, and they had a change to 400.11. This is general requirement, and what they did, they added a new sentence here, and this has been added to address the protection of unqualified persons in the vicinity of the equipment. Okay. So they tell you
Uh-huh.
if the disconnecting means is readily accessible to unqualified persons, any enclosure door hinge cover of a disconnecting mean enclosure that exposes any type of energized parts when open shall require a tool to open or be capable of being locked.
Oh wow, the
Okay.
Tommy tie rule. Wow, we got a Tommy tie rule in here now. Awesome.
But that to me that's to protect from anybody getting shocked. You know, you get people out there around equipment and they just want to make sure where you have a disconnecting means that you have a special tool that's required to open it or it's got to be capable of being locked. Okay.
Hey, just
So
to let you guys know, I'm not trying to promote anything, but I hear there's this guy that invented this thing called the Billy Bolt out in Colorado that works really great. You just put a nut and bolt in there and it locks that thing tight. So, not trying to promote anything, just letting you guys know. Billy Bolt
Billy
safety.
Boat. Billy Boat. Okay. Now let me explain what took place here. Uh, in 440.22a, basically what they did, they they added two new exceptions here that was sort of like a revision, and to help make this consistent with the sizing requirements that like you would see over in 430.52c1. Now, if you remember when you went over and looked at 430.52c1, we used to have exception one, uh, 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 exception one and exception two. And now that's going to be 430.52C1A and B. It went to full code text. Now, what they did here is if you look at 440.22A, like I made a statement a while ago, and all they did is revise this and move it down. So if you look at 440.22a, it's going to talk about a protected device in the second sentence. It says having a rating or setting, now pay attention here, not exceeding 175%. Okay. What that
Right.
means is once you do the calculation, then you don't want to exceed. So that means you're going to do what? Drop down.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, if it's the same size, that's perfect. You're good. But if it isn't, then you drop down the next standard size. Now, what you're going to notice down in exception two, you look at the down there, it'll say you can go up if the motor is if it basically what they're telling you here is in exception one, if the values of the branch circuit, short circuit, ground fault protection, according to 440.22a, do not correspond to standard size rating fuses, blah, 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 they automatically give you permission to do what? Go up to the next standard size without doing any calculation. Okay.
Right.
Then exception two is going to say if exception one won't start due to the inrush current of the motor, then they allow you to go up to what? 225%, but they say you can't exceed that calculated load. Now, if you go over and you look at 430.52C1, A and B, it's same wording. If I take and calculate my motor and say it doesn't, and I drop down per 430.52C1 in table 430.52, if I do the calculation and and I drop down the next standard size and it doesn't start due to inrush current, 430.52C1A automatically gives me permission to go up to the next standard size without doing anything. And
Nice.
we'll just make a problem up here. Let's just say it's a 460 volt, 50 horsepower, three-phase design B squirrel cage motor, and I'm sizing an inverse time circuit breaker. Well, if I go down to exception I'm sorry, 430.52C1B, and I pick up B3, and I pick up for an inverse time circuit breaker. Since I didn't exceed 100 amps, it allows me to go up to 400%, but it tells me I can't what? Exceed the calculated load. So what do?
Yeah.
Drop down to the next standard size. So all
Well,
now, if you used to go back and look at this section, basically you had the 175% and 225%. You didn't have the exception one to automatically go up to the next standard size. So
Well, I just found another exception that I didn't think about before.
what's that?
So we've actually installed 12 amp AC units that had 12 amp outdoor condensing units, and they're not required to have branch circuit. The branch circuit have GFCI protection.
Well, no.
So it
If,
says,
if
yeah.
it's
So
hardwired, it's not.
yeah, so that means that they don't connect to an outlet either. So I didn't even think about that, but I never thought that amperage rating would come into that. And I guess it says ground fault protective device. So that wouldn't necessarily be personnel protection, but to me that's interesting because no, I think there's a lot of manufacturers out there that's installing those ground fault protector protective devices that aren't required if it's below 15 amps.
Uh-huh. Sure. And
Yeah,
that's what I'm
that's
saying.
interesting.
When you get in and you start looking at this, there's going to be some more changes coming into 2026 that help clarify this. And I think Co-Making Pound 2 is going to have a little fight on their hands about this outlet. And because I believe there's a lot of, I've talked to a lot of other co-making panels and they don't agree with that interpretation, there being an outlet there.
Yeah, and we've had like Crystal Hunter on here. Crystal Hunter's fun. We did aluminum. I guess Mike Holt calls it dinosaur doo doo is what he calls the antioxidant paste. But it was really awesome. One of our episodes with Crystal, we were really happy to have Crystal Hunter on here, and she did a great job and just really class act. Came in and just kind of went through the whole things with that, and it really meant a lot because I always go through some of these stuff when you get these myths, and it's like, well, this code person said this, and this code person said that, and this code person said that, and I kind of weed through all that bull crap and just go right to Crystal Hunter. She had an article in EC&M magazine, and
Mm-hmm.
it was an amazing article. And I read the article and went through it and just kind of with a fine tooth comb, and then went on there. We interviewed her and had her on here, and it was just awesome to have her on here and go through all that stuff and just kind of get you guys the truth about where these myths come from. And one of the things that stuck out for me, that article, and I never would have thought this till I read the article. Crystal says, well, you see all those bright, shiny lines that are hanging up on all those poles as you're driving by. That's aluminum alloy 8000, and there's nothing applied to them, and they're hanging up in the air. They've been up there for 20 years,
Right.
and there's nothing on them. They look great still. So that
love
to
it.
me, yeah, it stuck out to me. I'm like, yeah, they didn't coat that thing with deox all the way down,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So
Well, what they did here, this is going to deal with the disconnecting means for generators. Of course, these are generators that are other than cord and plug connected portable generators that we're dealing with here. And what they did, they made a revision here to separate the generator emergency shutdown and disconnect. And I think these requirements, the way they've done this, is going to provide more clarity as we look at that. Now, they did add some additional modifications here to clarify the permitted locations for these emergency shutdown devices and the marking required. And then they had B that was added here. They basically revised it because it used to say paralleling equipment and to paralleling system bus. And what they've done here is to let you know that you have a disconnecting means here. It's permitted to be located within the generator behind a hinge door cover or enclosure panel. And then they tell you when you have this disconnecting mean location within the generator, then you're going to have a field applied label, and that's going to be in compliance with 110.21B that helps indicate the location of that generator disconnecting means. So anybody going out there servicing it is aware where that is. Okay.
Right.
Now, there's going to be a couple here because there's some things we have to look at as we're looking at this. They also did remote emergency shutdown, and this is for the prime mover. And this, of course, is other than 1 and 2 family dwellings. But they made a revision here to separate the generator emergency shutdown and disconnecting means, once again, for clarity. Okay. And what they're telling you here is when you have generators that are greater than 15 kW, they're required to be provided with a remote emergency stop switch that will shut down that prime mover. Okay.
Right.
And then they also tell you that remote emergency stop switch is required to be located outside the equipment room or generator enclosure. And of course, it'll have to be where? At a readily accessible location. And then they'll tell you once again that you have to provide a label and you meet the requirements once again of 110.21b. So you're starting to notice there's a lot of stuff. I didn't put the one for residential, but even 1 and 2 family, they're requiring disconnecting means there for emergency.
Hey, I have a good one for you.
Mm-hmm.
Per 110.21b, can I run up there and write it with the Sharpie?
No.
It's got to be rated for the environment.
That's right. And what it comes into when you're looking at this, when you go look at 110.21b, there's certain coloring and stuff that has to be there also. So when you're given a warning, it'll be in yellow if a signal in yellow. If you're given a warning, it's in what? Orange. And if you're given a danger, then it's in what? Red. So that's why,
yep.
and what's going to happen, there's going to be an exception over in 110.21b, and it's going to refer you to the ANSI standard Z535 that deals with the markings.
Yep, okay? Absolutely. No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to say too was that one kind of, and this all kind of ties into what I was talking about when you're verifying electrically safe work condition. This is part of it. And that's how we did it. Was we went and we just disabled that ESD. We just ESD'd the genset, and then we were able to kill the transfer switch. And then we knew that genset wouldn't fire up and backfeed into our working electrically safe work area.
Right. Now, looky here. This is the one I just brought up. 1 and 2 family dwellings. For other and cord and plug connected portable generators, I need to have what? An emergency shutdown device located outside of the, of course, once again, where? At a readily accessible location. Okay.
Yep.
And then once again, it tells you need to label that and meet the requirements of what? 110.21b.
Yeah. And
you got these.
Basically the purpose of that one. The purpose of that 110.21b is basically anytime there's like something that's warning that somebody needs to know. Like if you're making like a panel schedule or something, you can still handwrite it. It doesn't need to be, like there's certain things that you can write that's not a warning that you can handwrite. There's certain things that you can't handwrite. I mean, maybe it's panel schedule now, but there's certain things that you cannot handwrite, and there's certain things you can. But a warning of something that's imminent to operation of it is not allowed to be handwritten.
And that's exactly why
that 110.
That's exactly why they refer to 110.21b. to clarify.
Absolutely.
And that was my changes for the week. That's
it all works together. Dude, it's easy, dude. It's so easy. I mean, like, dude, it all works together. Everything just falls into place. It's all this puzzle. It all fits. Like you just have to find out where it fits and how it fits.
Sure.
And this is so awesome that we're able to do this kind of stuff and just kind of easily show people like, here's how we bust the myth. Here's how this myth got started. You know, like if I find out like, hey, this myth got started, one that I would like to do that we're running into at the hospital right now is everyone says, oh, you got to have ceiling wires on everything, because then when the firefighters start pulling the ceiling down, then there's a bunch of stuff falling on their heads. And it's like, that's a total myth. Total myth.
That's right.
There's no there's nothing in the code that says you have to attach electrical devices to ceiling wires. Like if you go read it and you start going through it and you start looking and you go into 410 136B, you'll see that basically it just says the luminaire needs to be attached to the ceiling structure. Doesn't say anything about having to have a ceiling wire on it. So that's the kind of stuff that we're gonna kind of get into. I got into it with one of my buddies, one of a good inspector that I always liked, and a lot of people call him Fail Dale, so I probably just spoiled it. But Fail Dale always wanted that ceiling wire to a recessed can, and you know, maybe he's right, maybe he's wrong, whatever. But I went through and just was like, eventually, I'm gonna prove Fail Dale wrong, you know. And me and Dale got along great downtown Denver. He's a good inspector, and we went back and forth on a lot of things, but he never failed me. I never, you know, was disrespectful to him at any point. And it was a lot of fun to work with inspectors like that, how we're always challenging each other. Where, you know, I'm like, hey, show me the code on that. And then he's like, yeah, you know what? You got me, but you know, City of Denver says this or whatever, you know. And I was like, God dang it. And I had times where we had a 1-to-1 ratio, and all my bosses were always challenging it because they're like, oh, it's 3-to-1 in Colorado. It's 3-to-1. You tell Dale come out here. I'm like, oh man, I'm not tell Dale nothing. So then Dale comes out and he's like, hey Bill, how many apprentices you got today? I was like, yeah, I got 3. He's like, tell 2 of them to go home. I was like, all right. So I tell 2 of them, hey, see you guys later. You got to go. And so then here comes the owner. He's like, hey, where's so-and-so? I had to send him home. He's all mad. And he's, oh, where's that Dale guy? I want to talk to him. And I was like, oh, he's right over there. He's coming over. I think he's pulling out that ratio thing out of his, you know, he had a clipboard. He's pulling the ratio thing out because he knows that's what they want to argue, since I just sent 2 of the guys home. And they're like, oh, it's 3-to-1 state of Colorado. He says, yeah, Denver City Amendment 1-to-1. And it's so funny. And they're just, oh, okay, all right. Well, okay, well, have a good day, sir. You know, whatever, you know. And it was so funny because he won so many arguments. Yeah, he was right. And they're talking about going back to a 1-to-1 entire state of Colorado now, which that could be good. You know, I don't know if that's really a bad thing, you know. I mean, I like the supervision. I think it should be a 1-to-1.
1-to-2. I like 1-to-2.
Yeah, 1-to-2 is fine too. I like to do the 1-to-1 with my top apprentice, and then like have him kind of help the next guy down. So that would be kind of in the same line as your 1-to-2 kind of thing. And then that way it's kind of like getting passed down, and then, you know, if he has a question, he'd come to me, and he has a question, he'd come to me, and they kind of train each other. It kind of works as like a triangle. But 3-to-1 is difficult for us. You know, it's hard. I mean, you'll always have one guy that just falls through the cracks, and there's nothing you can do for him.
The reason I like 1-2, it encourages the apprentices. They got to move up. You know, you just can't be a lifelong career apprentice, you know, unless you can get away with it, and they, you know, got to put time in and study to move up the chain, you know. Otherwise, you're not going to have a job in the electrical field.
Well, we just did that here in Colorado too. We actually passed the 6-year rule where if you're registered as apprentice for 6 years, then you must attempt a test.
Yeah.
And I think that's good too, to get those career guys out of there, because a lot of these guys are getting close to journeyman wage, and then they get close to journeyman wage, they're never going to test out. And I know it was kind of angering to me last time when I did the renewal. I actually took your state of Colorado class last time, And I was like, man, I had to pay $125 for this class. I had to buy a $100 book. I had to, pay the state of Colorado. I had to do all this stuff, and I think I dropped like $500 in a day or something like that. And I was frustrated. And this guy's like, oh, screw that. And he's making like $1 less than me. You know what I mean? It's like that's not fair. I just went and dropped $500. And this guy's like, oh, yeah, I'm never doing that. It's like, dude, you just fell down the stairs the other day with a freaking whole hog and you still have a job. Like to me, that's not fair because it's not, they're just desperate for people and they don't care. They just are like, hey, this dude's been doing it longer than you. Well, yeah, he's been doing it longer than me, unlicensed,
Yeah,
and
that's right.
I don't know how they get away with the Apprentisaurus Rex. Apprentisaurus Rex has been deleted in Colorado.
I think you're going to eventually start seeing states do something about that.
Well, we did.
I just think a lot of states will be like, you just can't stay an apprentice forever. And
yep,
I see it happening. All right, you ready for tool of the week?
Let's do it.
Your baby. Let me get us popped in.
It's time for Tool Review of the Week. Sponsored by Electricians Only Tool Review and Nipex Tradesman.
All right. Well, this tool actually made it onto my Christmas list this week. And so if anybody's out there, I will accept donations for this tool. This is actually a DeWalt cable cutter, ratcheting cable cutter. It looks really like it could fit in some spaces because that's always the big thing that I have problems with on these cable cutters. It looks like they kind of worked on the design and made it to where so the biggest problem that I've always ran into with these cable cutters, it would be right around where the DeWalt emblem's at, and that's where the locking mechanism in. That's where your power is. That's where it cuts the cable. And so it looks like it's pretty well designed and it beefed it up right there. And, like I say, you'll never beat the power of a DeWalt battery. We were talking about it the other day with one of the guys at the site I'm at. And he's like, oh, wow, you have the 5 amp hour? He's like, how often do you charge it? I'm like, I don't remember. Like, I don't think I charged a battery in a year. I have like five amp hour batteries and I just roll through them. And I think I charge all 5 in once a year, but they just last forever. And the one thing that I like about this is that it looks like it has a pretty easy way to use it. Like it looks like you can kind of just grab the grip and slam it out. So looks like it'd be good for a lot of really fast. Like a lot of times when we're in gas and oil, you have to kind of trim probably like 10 cables like really fast. So it looks like it's able to do that. And the only thing I wouldn't be able to tell you guys about is like the release mechanism, because that'd be the other thing. But it looks like at the back there would be like the release mechanism, because that's what you really want. Is like if you start biting in and then you don't like your bite wherever you start going in, you have to kind of like release it, back it off, move it to a different spot, then take another bite. So that's what's nice about these cable cutters. And yes, everyone out there, it is on my Christmas list, so I will take one if you're sending it to me. But overall, I think it's a good tool. The only thing I didn't like about it is it looks like it could be kind of bulky, because that's always the problem with ratchet cutters. Sometimes, like if you're cutting off abandoned cables, you have to get it like all the way to the ground and you have to like get it into a really tight spot. And I don't know how it would perform there when it comes to some of those things. Like I've had times where I've actually broken my ratchet cutters because we're trying to cut so many cables at the same time, or just getting in that really tight spot. And you get to the point where it just won't ratchet anymore. And you just basically have to take something and cut it off or break it or like whatever, like you get to a point where you just have to break your ratchet cutters because you'd rather just break a pair of ratchet cutters than get the wire stuck in there or not get the wire pulled that night or whatever you're doing. We've been in a lot of emergency situations where those ratchet cutters came in handy, and I think it would work great for most of the stuff that I do, but I would hate to get a high dollar battery tool stuck in there and just have to break it or do something to it to get it out of there. But sometimes you have to do what you have to do.
Oh,
yeah, but no, it's really
times.
awesome. I really appreciate everyone. I will post this up on the Electricians Only Tool Review page on my Electricians Only Tool Review group, and I think it's awesome. Like, I hope everyone out there gets the same Christmas present as me as one of these. So I'm gonna be checking my mailbox. Hopefully, one of them shows up, but we'll see. You know, and I will do that too to all the tool people out there. If you want me to try out a tool and you want it to put it on the market or whatever, send it to me and I'll put it to use. I'll put it out there in the field, and I'll give it to the greenest apprentice I got and make sure he can break it or test it out and prove it good, but my apprentices will break it. So whatever, mostly break it. They'll be like, oh, I thought it only had one direction. Like I remember one of the guys was like, a hammer drill only goes one direction forward. I'm like, this bit is toast. You went in reverse for an hour, so.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
It's just one of those. That's why I'm kind of a tool nerd. I like tools. I like using them. And so it's pretty awesome.
Hey, I love tools.
Yeah. I really appreciate everyone joining.
I'm tired.
Yeah, I really appreciate everyone joining every week. It's really awesome. And sign up for the death match. You will have a blast. Subscribe to our channel. Can't ring the bell, James. I don't know what you did, man. You broke the bell, dude. I can't. The bell is not. Our bell is broken.
Figure it out. That's
our bell is broken. Sorry, I don't know what happened to our bell. James broke our bell. He did something. I don't know what he did, but when we originally started this, he had like comments disabled, so you couldn't even like do the comments on YouTube. So we got that fixed. So we're just gonna kind of go through and figure it out as we go. But you can still subscribe to the channel and subscribe to the channel. Hit the likes. It's really awesome for everyone that shows up here every week, and I really appreciate everyone joining. Thanks, John, for joining this week. And guess what, bro? We'll go, bro. We'll go toe to toe on the death match, man. I'm ready. I think it's awesome. I've already had some training. You haven't had the training yet, John. So we'll get there. But like I say, 95%. Nobody really took me on last time. Once I posted that 95%, everyone kind of scared everyone away. So I think I'm going to have to kind of calm it down this time and not just post all my 95% everywhere and just show everybody. I think that was where everyone got scared last time. So I'll keep it cool this time. I'll keep it down. And then just letting everyone know, James Stallcup. James has the code change book coming out soon. And if you ever got gypped off one of his, the PDF or the book?
PDF. The book should be out here pretty quick. I know they're it's in the print house right now, so they should have it. They may already have it. I don't know. I hadn't even checked. So
if you guys ever took one of James's state programs, you might be getting gypped a few code changes. So you're gonna have to get the book so you get all the code changes. Like I actually had to really hound him pretty hard over the years. I almost think I got all my code changes back so far, but I had to work really hard on him. But I think I got him a few of them back, most of them. But it's all good. I'm not hating on you. I know it's how you set up the Colorado program, but people could think they're getting gypped on code changes, and so just let us know, and we'll make sure you get all the code changes this cycle.
Yeah, I'll have
we'll fix it. We'll fix it. That's what we're here for. Get it. We'll get it taken care of.
this cycle, they're still going to be on 2020 because I think aren't y'all required to have your license updated by next September?
Yes.
I think that's right. Yeah. So
Yeah,
it'll be on
September 30th.
2020.
It might be October 1st because they've changed it a little bit, but it's September 30th or October 1st. You know what it aligns with? The
1 year.
compatibility of AC units. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, one of the things when I get the reapproval, it'll be on 2020. And then when y'all update for the next one, it'll be 2023.
So if I'm going to take a class from you, it's got to be 2023.
What I might do is submit both of
But
them.
it only has to be 4 hours of 2023. So for Colorado, we only have to have 4 hours of code changes. So we have to have 24 hours. 20 hours of it can be whatever you want. Grounding and bonding. I think the areas are grounding and bonding, calculations, wiring methods, and then code changes. So out of those 4 areas, only 4 hours have to be code changes. And then the rest, you can mix it up. You could do 20 hours of wiring methods.
Well, I'll probably
they
do
don't.
the full 2023 then, and then the next time when it comes around after 3 years, I'll have it on 2026. And
Yeah,
probably,
but you could run your same 2020 like you did last time, and you only have to do 20 hours of that, and then the 4 hours would have to be 2023. So you could put together a 4 hour just like what we did about controversial changes. You could do a 4 hour of that and then mix it in with your old 2020, and that's fine. That's compliant with Colorado.
Yeah, we'll see. It's usually easier for me to just do the full thing 2023, and then that'll run through the next 2 years or 3 years before the next September comes, and I'll submit the 2026. That probably
see, like us in Wyoming is almost exactly the same, but Wyoming only has 18 hours. But I think Wyoming does the same thing as us. You only have to have 4 hours of code changes, then 14 hours of whatever you want. So I think it comes down to just what's critical is that 4 hours of code changes, because that's what we're kind of judged on with our continuing education.
Yeah, I think it'd probably be best if I do that, then I'll have everything completed in February. And once it's completed, it's very simple for me to put it on the learning management system and then scale it to the hours I need and everything. And I can just submit that as a full thing. And everybody that's in Colorado will get the new 2023 for before September gets here. I'll probably have an approval by March or April, and that gives plenty of time for everybody to take it.
Dude, like everyone here is like chomping at the bit. Like the biggest thing about code changes or about the continuing education here, everyone wants to do it early. Everyone wants to get it done. Like I've had people do it like the minute that it comes available. So that might be something you could do, is have like an early one and then a code change one when both of them are the same. Submit maybe 2 and have one that could be an early one there where you just do mostly 2020 and with the 4 hours of code changes. Then you have another one where you do just all code change, because I would take the 2023 one regardless. I mean, I'd probably take it even if I already did the early one. I'd probably still take the 2023 one as just like a code change class. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
well, I can do that because I've already got 4 hours. I'm already setting, probably with video that's done, I'm probably already at 10 hours. And
yeah, but it's just something for the all my peeps out here in Colorado that we're gonna get to taking care of. I would like to see if you could get it done probably in the February range. So that would work out great for everyone
I can
around.
do that.
Awesome.
I'll finish what I'm doing now, and I'll put the 4 hours in, send it, and put it in, and then that'll get a completion from it. It won't even be that hard to do, really.
Yeah, and then you could submit like another one that's just the 2023 together, and then roll that one in. I guarantee you could actually add money to the 2023 one because it's so thorough, and you guys do such a great job every year. It's really awesome. I love your author's comments. I read those first.
Well, the main change that happened this cycle with the 2023, which nobody's ever done. Of course, some say we don't have any original ideas, but we're putting the first and second revision substantiations by the code-making panel. So you're going to get to see, basically, you're getting to see the process in a way. But you're going to get the 2023 NEC text that's voiced over, showing you what's new, and everything will be highlighted in yellow. And then you'll get the first revision substantiation by the code-making panel. And then you'll get the second revision substantiation. If they're both there, you could have either or both. And then you'll get the illustration with us explaining, combining everything, telling you what they did and everything. And of course, on that video, when it gets to the illustration, anywhere there's sections, tables, or anything, you can click and view that stuff and see it for yourself. Because sometimes we combine code loops to further explain what's taking place. And then, of course, it'll stop the video. And once you go back, it'll start back up.
So what I really liked about your Colorado one was how, like, you couldn't just answer the questions verbatim off the reading. Like, you actually, for one, you actually had to have the code book. And that's what I liked, because, and it was easy because you made it simple, because you're like, okay, this is in chapter 3 or in article 300. And then you would go through and you'd go through all the changes, and then you'd ask questions based on chapter 3, on article 300. And it wasn't directly off that reading for the code changes, but it was just little questions. And they weren't hard questions, but I really liked it because the way you set it up, it was cool. I really felt like I learned, and I felt like I was complying with Colorado and learning at the same time. And just kind of like, I felt it was like a win-win situation. I felt like I was learning. You were just getting paid back for your awesome material. And then, Colorado was getting an awesome electrician out in the field that could tell the apprentice, like, hey, you can't do that anymore, and then they're like, what? Like, yeah, go look it up right here, and it's funny because the inspector, I really enjoyed this. It would come out every day and he'd be like, hey, teach me something. And every day I could teach him something based off your materials and based off the stuff I learned from you, and those inspectors, they didn't know it, and they didn't learn it. And it was just those little obscure things, kind of like the transformers at high altitude. A lot of people wouldn't realize that you guys have that publication, and that's based off a little bit of a correction factor for elevation, but not something that is gonna, blow up the world. And that's not what you guys are saying either. You're just trying to make sure that you have these educated people out in the field. And to me, it's awesome that we have this podcast. We were able to put it together. I was able to bust miss and tie in my Nat King code. Really happy to hit 75,000 this week. I mean, we're not even halfway through the month to hit 75,000. That was awesome, so it's really cool. It just means a lot that I'm connecting with a lot of normal electricians, and we're all kind of, getting on the same page. So to me, that's awesome. And that's what I like to do. I appreciate it. Appreciate you. And
just like this podcast, we don't have a ton of people that are able to attend, but there's a ton of them that watch it after, it's out there in all the different social media platforms. And that's the main thing. I've had people contact me, message me, just say, man, I appreciate y'all putting that together and showing us different things, makes us think about stuff. And I actually had one guy, he texts me, he goes, you sat there and he goes, you're teaching something. He goes, are you looking at a code book when you're doing that? He goes, because you do that awful fast. And I'm like, nah, I ain't looking at nothing, brother. That's just
So I
here's
do
the
have
spirit.
one. I do have one complaint for you.
What's
It's
that?
my freaking high voltage live logo got turned into a triangle and you can't read it now. So we gotta fix that, man. Like
What's that?
it's the
Oh, you're
little
talking.
triangle.
Oh yeah, that was just a design thing. Yeah,
that
that just
that was awesome. I was like, oh man, that was like my best logo. And then it got turned into a triangle. You can't read it. Oh,
there you
there you
go.
go. All right, that works. Awesome. Yeah, yeah, that's better. I like it. That's way better. Um, no, it's really awesome. I have a bunch of dudes that are out on the job site that always come up to me and they're like, "Hey, dude, Willie, what's the freaking myth of the week?" And I'm like, "All right," and then we go over it, and then I tell them like why I came up with it, and the other thing I thought about too that you're saying, everyone says we don't have any original material. Who are we copying? Because nobody out there is doing
Nope.
material like what we're covering. So we have to be copying somebody if we don't have original material.
Oh, I just look at it as, some of them make those kind of statements because they ain't got no material, and
And everything
they
tastes better
want to
out of an
bag
eating
on
cup
somebody
too.
else. Now, wait a minute. I'll tell you right now, Quick Trip's pretty good down here in Texas.
Yeah,
I keep
yeah.
that place in business.
I got my eating cup, man, and I love my eating cup. It's from CED. So
I've got all kinds of cups like that that have been given to me, and they're just set in the pantry. I just like. I always like this styrofoam one up there because it doesn't sweat or nothing. I can set it right
yeah.
next to me. That's one of the reasons I like that cup. So
Yeah, I work in a hospital, so it's like they're constantly like you have to have everything in a cup. So
hmm
I get used to just always drinking out of a cup because then if you have like the disposable ones, they throw them away all the time. And if I fill this baby up, it's only 80 cents. If I have to go get a new one, it's like $3. So
yeah.
hey,
Well,
I learned through capitalism. But yeah, you'll never learn more than when you go to Boulder, Colorado, and you buy a pack of gum and they charge you sugar tax. It'll make you a little mad. But
really?
it is, yeah. Oh, dude, that town it's out of its mind, man. But they just
Wow.
they're the first city ever in the whole United States that's actually signed a assault weapon ban.
Hmm.
And so to them, an assault weapon is anything with a pistol grip, anything that holds more than 10 rounds, anything that's semi-automatic. It pretty much when you get down, I think there was a few other things. There was a couple other things, but they were the first ones to ever pass that, and they have a mass shooting up there. So it's just like
I
that.
was about to ask, did the crime rate go down?
Uh, you know, they it's hard to say up there because like it's kind of a cool town, but they just get it all stuffy and it's a college town, so how when you get all them college kids in there, it's
hmm
kind of like they all kind of have their little PC, kind of like South Park made fun of with their
hmm
whole PC police. Um, and so you kind of get that, but we just found out Deion Sanders up there coaching now, so that place might actually get cool. We used to have a thing up there they called a mall crawl, and it happened every Halloween. And you go up there and you just party, and just everyone just dresses up Halloween and just goes up there and just has a blast. They shut down the mall crawl. They're like, no more mall crawl. They had Grateful Dead concerts up there. Best place to go, Grateful Dead concert, Boulder, Colorado. Nope, shut down. Can't do that anymore. Then they did the 420 thing. So they had a 420 on April 20th. You go up there for 420 and just great time. You go up there and just all kinds of stuff happening. Just great time. Nope, can't do 420 anymore. So they just pretty much shut down all that stuff. But yeah, I think it'd be actually cool. A couple of buddies of mine have season tickets to the Buffs, CU Buffs.
hmm
So it'd be kind of cool to go up there and actually watch a game with like Dion. I think he could turn that program around. And you know his little saying. You know his little saying. What he's saying.
What's that?
We're coming. That's what Dion's saying. We're coming. So we'll see. We're in a tough division. I mean, we got Stanford, we got UCLA, we got Oregon, it's there. We have a lot of tough teams in our division. Like, I mean, I think we're in the Big 12, or I don't even know what they call our division we're in, but Buffs are in.
Or the Pac-12.
Or Pac-12, yeah, that's right. But I mean, it's like crazy. Like those 12 teams are like the best in college, you know. I mean, every year. I mean, UCLA, Stanford, Oregon, Washington, Utah, you know. Like, I mean,
well, y'all don't have to worry about USC and UCLA this next year. They're going to the Big Ten.
Yeah, I heard that too. Yeah,
that's happening.
But it's gonna be hey, I might change my college team next year. You know, who knows? You know, if CU's gonna do it, never know.
Hook 'em.
Yeah,
that's who you need to go to.
Hook 'em horns. All right. You know, I'm not gonna argue with you. We had a Sooner up in here. I lived out in Oklahoma for a while, and so I know a little bit about the Sooners. And like I say, I'm not partial on college. I don't really follow college that much. I'm not too passionate about it, but this next year, if we get Dion in there and he starts doing good and starts bringing the Buffs up into a championship role, yeah, I might jump on the bandwagon. You know, I'm right down the road. I'm a few miles away from the Buff Stadium. You know, so might just roll down there and get on that bandwagon.
I actually went out with this girl. She was a big football fan. Oklahoma and Texas beat them. That's when they had Bomar as their quarterback, boy, and Texas lit him up, boy. And she got so mad because I was laughing at it, she broke up with me. I was like, okay,
all right.
If that's going to be your litmus test, you can't take it, you crybaby. You know.
Yeah.
But she was perfectly okay the year before, no problems. But the next year, she's giving me smack back and forth, and then I gave it back the next year, and she got so mad, I'm done. I was like, okay.
Well, and that's what I noticed with like the Nebraska stuff, because like growing up, the Nebraska was like big bandwagon, you know, like Nebraska's #1, like nationwide, all the way across the nation. And then the Buffs started doing good with like Paul with McCartney, and then we had Eric Bieniemy, and we had like some good guys that were stepping up. And next thing you know, we end up going to Nebraska and beating them 63-36. And it was in Nebraska, in their stadium, when they're like undefeated. And like, I'll never forget them crying and everything else. Like, I mean, that was a bad loss for them, you know, and we just crushed them. And I think we ended up, you know, finishing like we won the championship, whatever it was that year. We won the Orange Bowl or whatever it was. I don't remember if it was the Orange Bowl or the Sugar Bowl or whatever bowl it was that year, but we ended up winning the bowl and, you know, took the #1 prize and everything. And then Eric Bieniemy got the Heisman Trophy. He's actually running backs coach now, I believe, on one of the teams. I want to say maybe Kansas City.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's awesome to go back to that and look at how you can make a championship team that easy.
I was watching,
awesome.
There's a video somebody posted, and it was after the Ohio State Michigan game. They played in Ohio State. He was walking down, and those there Ohio State players or fans were telling him "F you, F you." I mean, it was all the way he's walking, and I was like, "Wow, man, there's hatred there between those two teams."
Yeah, I don't think Ohio State's used to losing to Michigan ever, but you know, sometimes they do.
They did this year.
My brother's big blue, big time, big blue. So
he was.
I always
having a
hear
good time
everything.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching him play TCU. I'm gonna watch that game.
Yeah,
so
TCU's had a good season too, but I don't know, brother. I know you're tired. I know you're ready to wrap it up. I gotta go check some scores on the old Hockey Nation Live.
Yeah, you have fun doing that. I'm telling you, I'm going to bed. I'm tired. I've worked too many hours today.
Dude, I really appreciate it, dude. You kicked butt, man. You freaking tore it up this week, man. It's freaking awesome. So appreciate you, sir. And we keep killing it, man. Best online training you will get anywhere on social media, anywhere. Hands down.
It's getting better. And better.
We can't find anybody that could stack up to the Stall Cups.
I keep trying to get them to post it, but they won't do it. So,
yeah.
But I'm about to make a post on it. I'll probably post something tomorrow, show some of the screenshots and stuff, and explain why I think it's better, and let everybody see for themselves. So, but anyway, let's wrap this booger up, man.
They hate us because they ain't us. But remember, make every day an easy day.
Amen. All right, everybody. Have a good week, good weekend, and we'll see y'all next week. Y'all, let's see, what is next week? Is that going to be during Christmas? What is day?
Close.
We can do next week. It'll probably be the next week. We might not do anything because it's through the holidays. I know I'm going to be busy, so. But we'll do the next week. All right.
Awesome.
Peace, everybody. Y'all have a good night. We'll see y'all next week.
Peace. Subscribe today. Thanks for joining DeWalt Online Academy. Thanks for joining NEC for Dummies. Appreciate you guys. Check out the new Stall Cup coaching episode. Thanks for joining Rayboy. Thanks for joining 2023 Electrical Coaching. The NEC Deathmatch is here starting January 1st. Thanks for joining Lady Electrical Apprentices. Appreciate you, gals. Thanks for joining us. Join our YouTube channel and subscribe today. Thanks for joining Electrical Coaching. Awesome electrician. Thanks for joining Electricians Only. Thanks for joining NFPA 70 EW. Great job, guys. Thanks for joining Mark Campbell. Thanks for joining High Voltage Electrical Means. Your solution to needs electrical. Hope everyone enjoyed the podcast. Have a great weekend.